Okay, so it's now almost the end of February, so Trump has been in office for a little over a month now. I just want to give my summary about something which has really kind of caught my mind about something he's doing and saying. So we've been through the whole controversy about his cabinet and his national security advisor and people who have come and go who were basically kicked out by Obama, got a second wind with Trump, and then Flynn still didn't make it. There's issues. I think there's a lot of things that have happened that have caught the news, and so Trump essentially had a revival party. Essentially, decided he was going to have a person to faced his own supporters down in Florida or whatever, and went down, had almost a campaign rally down in Florida, decided he was going to start attacking the press again and again in a more serious manner. They started banning the press from actually didn't hold the actual press conference that Sean Spicer usually has in the White House. They just decided they were going to have an informal press briefing with just a few hand-picked select press press representatives away from cameras. And I think it was because the imaging of Sean Spicer was spiraling out of control, and it was looking bad. I think a lot of things happened for Trump that were looking bad. The first month began to look like chaos, and Trump decided he was going to say, no, it wasn't chaos. Everything was fine. That's exactly how we wanted to be. It was all working great. And yet again, he starts to attack the media on this whole concept of fake news. And Steve Bannon comes out and says, oh, the media is the enemy here. Okay. So it's interesting the kind of things that Trump and his supporters say about him and what he says and does. And it's interesting about what the media says about what he says and does. And it's interesting what the Democrats say about what he says and does. And I think that the one thing I have noticed throughout the entirety of Trump's presidential campaign, and certainly continuing on into his first month of administration as president, is that Trump is one of those guys who you look at him, you listen to him, okay, depending on who you are, you get different impressions. You get radically different impressions. And I think that this is a phenomenon of listener bias as much as anything else. Let's put it that way, okay? You either think he's a clown, a goofball, a dumbass, a moron in certain ways, or you think, yeah, this is the kind of guy who's speaking truth. He's not afraid to say the truth like so many politicians have been and so on. He's finally connecting with our real concerns as Americans. I mean, everyone has an opinion about what Trump is based upon what he says. But I feel that he has almost always had going for him, if not a Teflon jacket like Ronald Reagan, let's say, okay? But at least a kernel of truth in what he says, okay? His redeeming feature, his sort of get out of jail free card, as it were, is that he might babble, he might bluster, he might talk like a fool and say things that are not true and generate alternative facts and stuff like that. But he does it around a kernel of truth, usually. He hits a point which resonates among a substantial number of people in this country because it is a valid concern. And I think this is the yin and yang of public speaking. You have to say things that are relevant to people, and you have to say things that people believe to hold their attention, okay? You can't just spout off nonsense and expect to hold people's attention and have them take you seriously. But if you say something that people believe and people take seriously, that doesn't mean it's actually true. And this is where he's getting caught on the other half of this equation. He's saying a lot of things which are simply not true And he's getting caught repeatedly saying it. And so are his surrogates, for the media. But here's the thing. He's got a point. What they're saying is not really news. We know that Trump and his surrogates are going to say things that are not true. That's not news. Catching them in lies, catching them in falsehoods, catching them in distortions of reality is not news. This is common. This is just his team doing it versus Reagan's team or Bush's team or even Obama's team or Clinton's team. It's the same thing that other politicians have done and other politicians will do through the rest of time, as long as they're politicians. He's got a good point in that the news is his policy, and they need to focus on his policy, not the nonsense that comes out of his mouth, trying to explain it or trying to rationalize it or trying to sell it. Okay? You don't win a logical argument by arguing with a fool. And that's what the media is doing. They're arguing with these fools instead of looking at the policy. Now, I'm not saying that they're all ignoring the policy or not, or that they're continuously ignoring the policy. That's not true. That's not true either. But they're spending way too much time arguing with these idiots about what actually comes out of his mouth or their rationalizations of the policy. Forget all that. Focus on the policy. Deal with the consequences. Deal with the issues. Okay? That's the truth. That is the issue. Trump has the mindset of a C student. His surrogates, likewise, the mindsets of C students. They speak like people who just cannot make a coherent case for their position. Fine. They don't need to be argued with. Don't need to deal with them. Deal with the issues that they have generated with their actions in terms of his executive orders, his appointments, and his policy statements, okay? That's what you need to deal with. That is the news. That's the issue, okay? When Trump says suddenly, okay, we're going to change the Obama policy about deportations and we're going to involve state and local authorities and we're going to deport anyone we catch who is here illegally, okay, regardless of how long or why or what they're doing here, that's a policy statement, okay? Focus on that. Don't worry about why they're saying it or what their rationale is or whatever. Focus on the policy. Just take them out of the equation and focus on the policy. You'll get somewhere much quicker and much easier and much more sensibly than if you try to deal with Kellyanne Conway or some stupid Republican congressman. You'll never get anywhere like that. Just like if you try to deal with Giuliani or if you try to deal with Newt Gingrich, you'll never get anywhere like that. They'll always talk circles trying to cover their butt constantly, okay? Deal with the policy. And this I think Trump has his hand firmly on the issue, and this is where I think the media is on the verge of making themselves look like they're just hopelessly biased against Trump. Focus on the issues and ignore the nonsense coming out of his mouth. If Sean Spicer doesn't want you or doesn't want to have a press conference with you, fine. Ignore Sean Spicer. He's giving you every reason to ignore him. Fine. Don't play that game. Don't go running into the White House and talking about, what Sean Spicer wants you to hear. Okay? Talk to the upper and mid-level people in the executive branch or the judicial branch or whatever. Get to your leaks, get to your sources, get to the stories, deal with the issues, deal with the court cases. Forget all about this. Okay, so that's enough. I think I don't need to say 10 minutes about that point, but I think that it's just gone on too long. I don't need to say 10 minutes about it. We don't need to hear it for a month. We definitely don't need to hear it for another 4 years. Just deal with the facts that you know are true and forget the nonsense coming out of these blowhards' mouths.